Hello, I'm Marshall Shore, Arizona's hip historian. Today I'm joined by the Arizona State Capitol because it was recently proclaimed online to be the ugliest state capitol in America. How did that make you feel?
It makes me feel mad and upset. I'm over 115 years old, older than the state itself, and those folks at that list took a pic of my bum and called it ugly. Though I've had some work done, I don't feel that they were correct nor very polite.
You know, Capitol, you're looking quite dapper today.
Well, thank you, hip historian. I'm a humble capital, nothing too fancy. I'm all about local. My foundation that keeps me standing here was carved from our own nearby landmark, Camelback Mountain. My top came from Yavapai County, and the ground level is granite from South Mountain. But I have to boast about my copper top. It was old and dinged up. The wonderful youth across Arizona saved their pennies to buy me a new shiny copper dome. Thank you.
Who's with you today?
My children, the House and Senate. See, Arizona has grown a lot over the years. Instead of moving or getting rid of me and getting something new and fancy, they were added as needed. Some call them too modern, lacking class, but they are children of their era and show how we've grown since my territorial days.
Do you like it when people come to visit?
Oh, of course. I adore visitors. We're the home by and for the people. You can even get a tour of all 4 floors and hear the stories that make Arizona's history great.
Good evening. This is our final week of celebrating Black History Month on this platform. However, AARP's mission is to continue to highlight African Americans throughout the year, from past to present and beyond. I'm Rico Burton, and I volunteer in Phoenix for the AARP Arizona State Office. Last week, I spoke to you about AARP's commitment to the community. And because of this commitment, we choose to offer these virtual events that we call Fun with Purpose. Marshall Shore will be our weekly guide for the 2021 season, and we hope you mark your calendars to join us. Check the screen below for our website information. We invite you to visit often and learn about the exciting events we have planned for you, and for especially you. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy tonight's tour with Marshall. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, non-binary folk, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, hello, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you all on this February 25th. What glorious weather we are having here in Arizona. Oh my gosh, it is so beautiful out, and I do want to welcome you all. Thank you all so much for being here. Now, I know we have folks who are out there watching on Facebook. Some folks are on YouTube, and some are on Twitch. Now, on Facebook, we do have a chat session, so if you want to chime in there with things, feel free. And let me talk a little bit about what's going to happen tonight. So, you know, we always do our trivia. We have Little Arizona. We have some fun music history, very tied into our guests tonight, as well as show and tell, as well as it would not be happy hour without a cocktail. And have we got a doozy for you tonight, as well as we have our special guest, Tony, on, who I'll be bringing on a little bit later. So if this is your first time here, you might wonder, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, my name is Marshall Shore. I came here to the Valley 21 plus years ago, and from Brooklyn, where I originally was working in a library. And, you know, it was getting cold, There was lots of gray slush everywhere. It was no longer that beautiful first snow, and it was a little chilly. So I decided it was time for a change. So I traded that library for the Harmon Library in South Phoenix. Now, when I got there from New York, it was such a great place to be. I mean, there was such this oral tradition of the community. We had a great art project that involved the kids creating this mural that you see there. And coming here, it was like I started wondering, well, who was Harmon that gave this park and this library? And so I started doing research on him. And so W.E. Harmon was a wealthy real estate person, land broker. And he started a whole project that he brought on artists to basically highlight African-American artists and their contributions to society. So it's like, if you go to the Smithsonian, you will see works of art that were commissioned by his foundation. And they were famous for then giving parks across the country. So I was kind of surprised that I didn't realize that there were all these Harmon parks, playgrounds, things like that, as well as a library. Now, to get here, we basically loaded everything we own into a big orange cube, a U-Haul. And, they have their International World Headquarters right here in Central Phoenix. Now, when we moved here, we promptly moved into a 1956 ranch, and it was oh so many tones of beige, and decided it needed to be something a little bit more simple. So it is now a two-tone. Count them. One, two. Seafoam and cantaloupe. And so pretty much the house is a time capsule. I mean, there's what my kitchen looks like today. Lots of buttercream yellow tile. My bathroom is pink and black. The other bathroom is green and black. And so it is like stepping back in time. And that was kind of the fun of being in this house. Now, as soon as I moved here from Brooklyn, all I kept hearing about how there was no history here. But every time I went for an adventure, whether it was on foot, on a bike, in a car, I kept coming face to face with so many amazing people, places, and stories that eventually it got me to doing things just like this. I used to do a wide variety of tours and lectures kind of across the state. And then there was all those GIs that I think in oh so many ways, that post-war boom made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those GIs that either were stationed here, trained here, or passed through on their way to somewhere else. And after the war, they were moving here in huge numbers, looking for a whole new way of life. And I think they found it. Now, I'm also known as the hip historian, and you might wonder, how does one get a name like the hip historian? Well, every year, February 14th, Arizona celebrates not just Valentine's Day, but also Statehood Day. And so back in 2012, we were celebrating 100 years of statehood. And so they did events across the state, including at the state capitol. And so they gave me 15 minutes to talk about anything I wanted to. And I chose one of the most favorite events that was called Mask of the Yellow Moon. It started back in 1926 and ran through 1955. It was with the curriculum and everybody got involved. At its height, it had about 5,000 plus high school and college students performing and making sure the show was well done. And so, including costumes. And so I was able to find 3 costumes from the 30s in a box. And I was able to convince 3 amazing friends to don those outfits. They walked around the stage while we played music from the Mask of Yellow Moon. I talked about the Mask of Yellow Moon. We just had a grand old time. And so that brings us to today. No tours. Well, actually, I am doing we do one walking tour a month. And so we are all completely masked. I used to do bus tours, and those have now kind of morphed into these walking tours. And because I used to do lectures, I'm doing things like this. I mean, I'm actually meeting with Parks and Rec next week to talk about doing some things with them during spring break for students. So all kinds of fun stuff coming up. Now, if you would like to reach out after the show, you can track me down on Facebook, Instagram, even good old-fashioned email works. Now, if you're watching on Facebook, I will ask you to click on that little share button so that way all your friends will know the fun we're having and the history that we're getting a chance to talk about, some of which you might know, some of which you might not know. And that's the fun of this. Indeed, it is fun with purpose. So, show and tell. So, I have a house full of stuff. And so I always kind of like to highlight things. And so today we're going to highlight Charles Harrison. So he was a graduate of Carver, the segregated high school in South Phoenix, that is now the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center. And so Charles Harrison became an industrial designer for Sears. He designed things like the first plastic wastebasket. He did a hair dryer. He's done all kinds of things, but one of the most iconic things he did was he did the Viewmaster that so many of us grew up with. And so I'm happy to say that last week I donated a couple of these down to Carver because, if I've got one of something, I've got several. So I was able to give them one, basically his design of that classic Viewmaster. Now, because it is indeed a happy hour, it would not be a happy hour without a beverage. And so, JP, my cocktail ambassador, advisor, call him what you will, but he has been doing an amazing job of coming up with cocktails every week that are on theme, tasty, and some of them have even made their way onto the Hotel Valley Hose list of cocktails. I know some are going to be coming up this summer. And so for tonight, he started off, and actually, let me just go over to our bar. Hold on just a moment while I conjure up my bartender. And so here we have, I guess I call him Silent Bob, but he really is a little mini me as a Muppet. And so he's my bartender. And so today we are enjoying Purple Rain. So PJ started off with taro root milk tea from Snow Ice Shavery with a little bit of black sesame drizzle. Now, he didn't realize when he was doing this that one of my favorite things is taro root. I mean, I just look at that gorgeous purple color. And you can see those little sesame seeds floating. Well, I can. You might not be able to because they're really tiny, but they're really tasty. And so into that taro root milk tea, he has added a whole host of things, such as plantation pineapple rum, Taiku coconut sake, Patron citron lime, some dry gin, some orzata, and there you have it, the Purple Rain. And it is quite tasty because I did sample it before this show. And so, let's see. And so there's that recipe if you would like to copy it down. Now, cheers. Oh gosh, that's good. And I have a feeling it's going to be kind of potent. I've already been forewarned about that. So we shall see how the night goes. So through the miracle of modern technology, we have a special guest. And so Tony C. has been a resident of Phoenix since 2002. He's admiration of cultural history. He created the first night market to pay homage to the history of the Warehouse District and Chinatown. He created Snow Ice Shavery, and also his new venture is called Local Buzz, which is an app that helps communities discover other communities, all local, through video. And it's so much fun. I know I've posted a few things on there, so that's really great. So, oh, and of course, just as we do that, I see he pops off screen. So let's see. Oh, and there we go. Perfect. And so right on cue.
Hey guys,
Right.
I'm in the car right now, so I'm driving. I'm driving from a left and right meeting, heading back into downtown. But this is gonna be my studio right now. my studio
No
booth,
worries at all.
music box, whatever if you want to call it a car, whatever it is, right? It's everything.
Well, at least you turned the music down for us right now, which is good. So PJ made this evening our cocktail, which is called Purple Rain, which is using some of your very own Snow Ice Shavery.
That's very impressive with the cocktail mix, because we tried making there's actually alcoholic boba. Actually, I collaborated with Cobra Arcade Bar, and we made 3 alcoholic boba drinks. That was a special, a pop-up little special over a weekend. This was like a year ago. It was like a matcha one, a taro one, and a regular house blend one. But the taro one was the most strongest one. It's just something with taro. It just makes it like eases out the alcohol, but it'll hit you afterwards. So, yeah.
Indeed. So yeah. So I know he made a big batch of it for me. So I may stop off and drop some off for you, just because it's really good.
Awesome.
So very good. So all right. So we're going to talk about some Chinese history, and we're going to do that through trivia. And so when we do trivia, we do a little unlike, well, most people, when you do trivia, it's more about, hey, here's the answer, and then you move on. But we are going to go through the questions and then take a little bit of an Arizona music history break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about all those answers. And I think some people are going to be surprised by some of those things that you're bringing up. It's going to be a lot of fun. So now, you can keep track of, some people do it in the chat. Some people do it on a pen and paper. My friend Will used his leg a few weeks ago and a Sharpie. So I guess he probably still has those answers written on his leg. I don't know. I guess it all depends on how much he's showering during COVID. So, but yeah. All right. So our first question is, what animal is this Lunar New Year's?
Oh, before anyone answers that, I mean, I love the outfit you got on right now.
My little, so this is like 50s Chinese pajamas.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Happy Lunar New Year to everyone. It's been, 2 weeks. Usually it's celebrated for almost like 2 weeks, in, our parts of the world. But Lunar New Year's is probably the second biggest celebration across the world, next to New Year's. Yeah. So.
Indeed. And so this year, it always is an animal. And so this year, what animal is it? Is it A, the year of the rooster, B, the year of the dragon, C, the year of the horse, or D, year of the ox? All right. So moving on to question 2. During Lunar New Year's, people celebrate prosperity by handing out good luck red envelopes with A, money, B, love notes, C, business cards, or D, candy. At this moment, I think all of those right now would be welcomed in this moment that we're all in.
All for one.
Exactly. I'll take one big envelope with a little bit of everything in it. So, but that all of the above is not one of the options. So you have to choose one of those answers. All right. The deuce is short slang for the name of this area in what part of downtown? A, East Lake Park neighborhood, B, the Warehouse District, C, Grand Avenue, or D, Woodland Neighborhood? So the deuce refers to what neighborhood in Phoenix? All right. One of the last Phoenix Chinatown residents still produces noodles in downtown Phoenix. What's his name? And the reason why we do multiple choice is because you might not know what his name is, but by the end of tonight, you will, and you'll be so hungry for noodles when we're done, you're going to be disappointed that you can't. Well, actually, I think there is a few places that are still open right now that you can run out even this late and get some noodles.
What's that?
So, all right. So, is that noodle maker, is his name Sam, A, B, Brian, and I'll let you pronounce C because I have no idea how to pronounce C.
I'll say Luyen.
Okay, that's close to what I would have said, but I'm glad you did it, not me. All right. Or D, Peter. So our one last resident noodle maker here in downtown Phoenix, what's his name? All right. So question 5, we are at that hump of a question. Phoenix once had 2 Chinatowns. One of the last remaining buildings was called Sun Mercantile. They were one of the largest suppliers of what? A, lumber, B, cotton, C, produce, or D, paint. So what was the Sun Mercantile a supplier of? All right, question 6. Phoenix Chinatown had nickname alleyway that went from 1st Street to 3rd Avenue between Madison and Jackson. And it was called A, the Golden Way, B, China Alley, C, Lantern Alley, or D, Dragon Corner. So Chinatown had a nickname alleyway. Like so many parts of Phoenix had little alleyways that were very vibrant, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. All right. Question 7. The Central Arizona Underpass Bridge was built in 1939 for what reason? A, cars to get away from the sun. B, water flow. Well, and that's a possibility because, when it rains a lot here.
Yeah.
All right. Or C, an easy pass under the train tracks. Or D, earlier bus services. So which of those was the reason why there is that underpass on Central Avenue? All right. The Brick House Music Venue was once a laundromat, A, B, a metal shop, C, an auto repair shop, or D, a grocery store. All right. So you might not know the answer, but by the end of tonight, you will indeed. All right. So Huchlon Onuki, a Japanese immigrant, introduced electricity to Phoenix. The first street lamp was on what street? A, Bell and Cave Creek. B, 16th Street in Washington. C, Washington and Central. Or D, 3rd Street and Washington. So where was the first street lamp located? All right. And coming up, our final question of the night. One of the only Asian murals in Roosevelt's art district symbolizes a protecting guardian animal in the Chinese culture. What animal is it? Is it A, a flying dragon, B, a monkey warrior, C, a tiger, or D, a foo dog? All right. So while you're getting your answers together, whether you're keeping track of them on your leg, maybe you're doing it however it makes you comfortable, you go right ahead and do that. No judgment is passed here. All right. So, while you're doing that, we're going to take a little bit of a music break and talk about some Arizona music. So we talked about Mr. Onuki. And so he had a variety of names. He kind of went Onuki, Onik, but he had children with his wife. And so his two daughters actually achieved some renown as a vaudeville team. But one daughter went to go work for an insurance company off in LA. His other daughter, Marion, remained in vaudeville, touring through the Orpheum circuit. She also wound up performing on Broadway, and she then broke into opera and concert singing. Her signature role was in Puccini's opera Madame Butterfly, and she reprised that role over and over again across the country for different companies through decades. Now, interestingly enough, she also dated Robert Ripley. So he is the man who created Ripley's Believe It or Not. And I tried to find a copy of it, but I couldn't find it. She's actually featured in one of his Ripley Believe It or Not cartoons as a Japanese. She was a Japanese prima donna who took all day to fix her hair.
This is blowing my mind right now because it's just all tying to the question and the history.
Yes, exactly. So that's why as soon as I found that out, as well as I've been chatting with Arizona Opera, they're getting ready to celebrate their 50th anniversary. And so we're kind of talking about what that looks like. And I was like, oh my gosh, here we have some other opera history, not related to them, but just opera history right here in Arizona that I had no clue about. So that's always part of the fun of these, is you never know what you're going to find. I know, Preston. So see, and I've not been able to find even any of recordings of the music or anything. So I don't know if anyone recorded her. Now, I did read that she was very much known for her pantomime or her caricatures that she would present on stage. Vocally, she may not have been the best, but she was extremely memorable in that role. All right. So I know some of you are ready for some answers. And all right. So question 1. What animal is this Lunar New Year's animal? It is D, the ox. So every year it's always a different animal. So Tony, what animal are you?
I'm the year of the rooster, and if you're a rooster, you're compatible with the ox. Ox is very hardworking, but also stubborn. That's what they're known for.
See, and I'm a horse, so that means I'm quite passionate and energetic, which I think people would.
And you have nice hair, right? Like all horses do, right?
Oh, that's true. I guess I do have like a mane of hair, both up and down. So. All right. During Lunar New Year's, people celebrate prosperity by handing out a good luck red envelope with what inside? Money.
Money, yep.
It's interesting because it's actually a couple of years ago. I couldn't do it this year, but down at the Pioneer Cemetery, there was, they did an event. And so there were folks and they gave out little red envelopes. And so and it was kind of, I didn't know if there'd be anything inside. I thought it would be just like, like funny money, but no, there was a dollar bill inside, which was kind of cool.
I think it's just, in the Asian culture, especially Chinese culture, fortune, blessing someone would say, hopefully, you make it well this year, your success in business. It's been long time centuries of that, right? And it's not. I don't think it's how much money you get, but it's the fact that someone gave you a red envelope and give those blessings.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it was completely unexpected, and I wasn't expecting anything. That's why I assumed there was going to be like a little like play money, like hey, have a great
Not
year
money.
inside. So not no commission at all. So that was kind of fun to be able to participate in that, as well as have some prosperity, because we could all use some prosperity.
Most definitely. I mean, always good luck, right? I think blessing anyone with good luck is always you're wishing the best for everyone, right? And I feel that that's the best you can, that's the best, whether it's giving you a red envelope or just even a gift card. It's that says good luck, right? I mean, having good luck, it gives some people hope, like hope and this feeling that good things will come, So
Exactly. All right. Our next question, number 3. The deuce is short slang for the name of what area of downtown? And it is B, the warehouse district. Which is basically right there by the train tracks, which explains why there are all those warehouses there, because they could just unload things from the train right into those warehouses.
yes, sir. The deuce was short for produce. The warehouse district was also known as the produce district, right? So I think I just gave out an answer.
Oh, that's okay. It's a little late now. Well, it's funny because, it's funny because it's like you also have the deuce. There have been all these stories about, because it included 2nd Street, that's where it came from. Or
Yes.
also it was beat number 2 for Phoenix police.
Yeah,
And so there's all these stories, but indeed it was short for produce.
Yep. And then it became like, I'm working, for the cops like that. I'm working the beat. I'm working at the deuce. That means it's the rough area now, right? Where all the old school bars and all that stuff like that turned what turned in the warehouse district into. And I mean, they said there were a lot of bars back then in the warehouse district, leftover bars, and that lasted a pretty long time until people started really leaving downtown. It got really worse. So it's good to see that the deuce has kept the name just to represent the deuce,
right? To keep that story and that history alive. I mean, because it was kind of our Skid Row.
Yeah,
I mean, there were there, and probably a lot of people may not also realize that Miranda was arrested in the deuce and was not, and basically it went to the Supreme Court that he didn't have any guidance from the police in terms of what to do, and because of that, it's like, now we have the Miranda rights.
Miranda rights, yeah.
So, and that happened right in the deuce.
Yep.
All right. So, the last Chinese noodle maker in downtown Phoenix, what's his name? Sam. So tell us about Sam.
Sam, I don't know his last name.
That's okay.
I don't think he's relations with any of the Ong or the Yi family, all the old Chinese American families, the first generation, which are still here. But he had a warehouse in the heart of Chinatown on 2nd and I think Madison, and he was a noodle supplier for Shanghai, a lot of noodles. I think his family they've been supplying, I think. For I think the 40s or 50s.
Wow, I didn't realize he'd been making noodles that long.
Yeah, so he when they tore down Chinatown and they built the stadium, they paid for his warehouse, right? So he bought a warehouse across the street from the Deuce on Central and Lincoln. And you go in there and in the back, in the front is a knickknack shop, but when you go into the warehouse, there's actually a noodle making machine in the back. Up to date, everything, but he's gone through a couple generations of it, and there's still one. He kept one of them that has that iron look, and the 40 steel iron look that's in there. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
Well, so Tony, when are we going to go visit Sam? I want to go visit him.
Well, he's 90 something, so
you better hurry.
His retirement is working to keep him going. But the knickknack shop has a lot of little, Chinese just fun stuff, even cooking stuff. I actually we helped organize it. Actually, Preston's son helped helped us all together to help organize the knickknack shop in the front to
Oh,
make it look like
fun.
an actual market. So uh, and then I went back in to check, see how they're doing a couple weeks ago, and it still looks good. So they also sell electric bikes too, which is, in Asia you see those, a lot of the scooter bikes, yeah, but like the Hong Kong version, yeah, they got those for sale as well. They've been selling those for a while. It's but everything that goes through them is word by mouth. They sell rice, all sorts of stuff, and it's all word by mouth. They don't use the internet or nothing like that. So yeah.
Nice. And
Yeah.
so Mary's asking, so where is the shop? So you said Second Street in Lincoln?
No, it's on Central and Central and Lincoln, across the street from the actual Deuce.
So just okay, so is it just south of the Deuce?
It's west of the Deuce, so it's
West
on the
of the Deuce.
it's on northwest corner.
Okay. So northwest corner of Central and Lincoln. All
Yes.
right. So I know I'm gonna go. I'm gonna try and drag you, so maybe you can get me into the back and I can see the noodle making machine, because that just sounds fascinating.
Yeah, you got to catch them at the right time when they're producing. They're making for, they still make for a couple restaurants around town. So, but he was the largest. He was the main supplier during the Phoenix Chinatown era for a lot of the Chinese restaurants. The Chinatown had, just the Chinese Americans in general had over like 200 small businesses around towns in the beginning of the Chinatown throughout the years, right? So, yep.
All right. Well, I'm going to make sure we can go in to visit Sam and get to see some noodles being made. So, all right. So Phoenix had two Chinatowns. One of the last remaining buildings, the Sun Mercantile, was the largest supplier of what? Sea produce. And so what is that building now today, Tony?
It is belongs to Phoenix Suns. It's a healthcare facility for the athletes.
Oh,
So,
I love that they kept the Sun kind of in the name. So it's like it was the Sun Mercantile, and now it belongs to the Suns basketball team. So
yeah, it's there's a picture in there that they have people standing out front of the warehouse. And what amazing about Phoenix Chinatown was that it was multicultural. It was a multicultural Chinatown. So it wasn't like other Chinatowns where in other parts of the city where it was just like where only the Asians are at. It's in the warehouse district. It was just everybody was living next to each other, working by each other, right, in a close proximity. And but there's the team that had over like 20 people in there. You look close, it's all different people from different walks of life, even though it was a Chinese-owned business, which is very inspiring to see the diversity of that back in the 40s, 30s and 40s, right? So.
yeah, so that's great that it was diverse even back then. And so you had Singhai originally was kind of in that neighborhood as well.
Yep.
Before they moved over and then wound up closing a couple of years ago, where the ballpark was, where the ballpark still is. So that was part of Chinatown as well.
Yeah, Chinatown. The main hub was between First and Third Street, but it was scattered all over the place. And Phoenix Chinatown, parts of Phoenix Chinatown, were not just Chinese-owned businesses. There's Japanese businesses. There's Filipinos. There's Filipino pool halls. On the northeast corner, there are like Mexican restaurants, even a Mexican pool hall. I have a whole map of this of all the small businesses that were all part of it. Chinatown.
Oh my gosh! I want to see that map. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's amazing, and especially where Michael Levine's building. What's that building on First and Jackson? Yeah, First and Jackson. It's where it says hotel.
Oh, right.
The warehouse, right? So that was the start of the second Chinatown, was right there on First and Madison. So that's where all the Asian, the Filipino, Japanese, and like Chinese businesses were in that corner. Then it sprouted into Second, Second Street, Third, and so forth, right? So.
Okay. Well, and I love even Anna said her mom was a waitress at Singhai when she was a teenager.
That's
so All right. So question 6, Phoenix Chinatown had a nickname alley that went from First First Street to Third Avenue between Madison and Jackson, and it was called China Alley B. And this really goes back to, I mean, it was not just this one alley, but there were alleys throughout the city that were these very vibrant communities that didn't show up on maps.
It was.
I mean, you had Donna Frios, which was on Cactus Way, and so that was an alley. There was Melinda's Alley that was kind of like the red light district, and so you had all these different alleys that had different purposes of existence that were just there, kind of almost like a hidden life.
It was usually people who live in the neighborhood had to draw out their own map, right? Like instead of like getting it printed through like professionally. So I think that's what lasted, and it was good to find these kind of archives. I went to the Arizona room at the downtown library, and there's only one archive book left about the Phoenix Chinatown era, the two Phoenix, Chinatown, all that stuff, and it was wrapped in like it was still good, good paper and everything, but it was wrapped in like rubber band and everything. You couldn't take it,
Right, because everything in the Arizona room is reference. It would also be interesting to reach out maybe to like even like the Arizona Historical Society to see what they have as well.
Yeah.
So they have their own stuff. So,
but all in all, these when I was doing Phoenix Night Market, the second Phoenix Night Market, it was to pay homage to the Phoenix Chinatown and the warehouse district. So I moved it from the farmers market area over here in Phoenix Public Market, and I moved it down to the warehouse district and took over from Central, actually over to 4th Street, by the train tracks, alleys, and took over Jackson. And we made a homage T-shirt, Phoenix Night Market 2019 with photos from the Chinatown. There's like a Chinese school, produce, even putting the neighbors on there, train tracks, everything like that. So above all, it just went to show Phoenix history, how this Chinatown was multicultural, and that's how Phoenix Night Market was, Asian inspired, but it was served for multicultural, communities together. So
now, once we're able to now socialize, will you do another night market?
Oh wow!
Or was it just
a lot of people. Oh man, I get that question a lot.
I'm sure you do, so that's why I'm asking.
You know what, the Asian, I served on the Asian Chamber of Commerce, and the Asian Chamber of Commerce created an Asian district night market, but that's over in Mesa now. So they moved on with that. It continued kind of like aftermath of Phoenix Night Market, right? Doing festivals is a lot of work.
It's indeed a lot of work. Yeah. I know IRC at one point was looking at International Rescue Committee was actually looking at doing like a night market type thing. So
yeah,
so maybe you can partner with them to try and do something once.
I'll think about it.
All right, I don't want to
pressure you. It's I think about. I mean, sometimes back in my head, it's like, man, dude, I miss those street food, night market food. But just the culture. You know what I'd love to see is that on Jackson, like a lot of people don't know there's a Chinatown, right? I think on Jackson it'll be awesome to like create like a lantern lane between like from Central down to like 4th Street around Jackson, and just have like not metal sculpted lanterns already, like the original Chinatown sculptures, but it could be just hanging lights.
Well, like in LA's Chinatown, it's like you just have those lanterns hanging out all the time, and then all these little storefronts that just have stuff. I mean,
but even Jackson is like, it's changing where you won't see no Asian storefronts, but just to know that to call it Lantern Lane is like a homage of there was a Chinatown in Phoenix, right? So
right,
and it was just right here. So.
Nice. All right, so Central Avenue Underpass was built in 1939, and what was it for? It was to get under those tracks, which would have been a huge barrier because it would have been so dangerous to get across all those tracks. And so that's why they built the tunnel. It was a pretty big, I mean, you can see here how busy it was.
Yeah, it's going to start looking like that when they built the light rail through one of the lanes, right? So when they're finished with that in 2000, 24, I think. 22,
Yeah,
24.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, hopefully they might even finish early. So, but yeah. So I'm excited to be able to take light rail down there, and
Those buildings right there are still from the photos, like that were those buildings are still there.
right. I mean, that's kind of the fun thing of looking at some of these old photos and realizing a lot of those buildings are still there. I mean, even amongst all the building that's going on downtown, there is still some history left. We haven't destroyed it all yet. But that's why we do things like this, to try and highlight to people that, hey, you know, there is this history and we need to keep it around.
I totally agree. It gives people, gives the city to know what Phoenix's history, was about, and where
Right. There were people here before.
where the city has come from, right? And it's just to show there's some kind of cultural history, or past history that got us to this point, right?
Exactly. That there were so many people that got us all to where we are at this moment.
Yeah.
All right. So question 8. The Brick House music venue once was a laundromat.
Yep.
So, and I didn't realize the Brick House was now open again, because I knew it had closed. I didn't realize it had opened again.
It's actually it's an office space now. The guy who took it over after they closed, he turned it into like office
okay.
space.
Because I saw they were putting lots of walls into it, and I wasn't quite sure what they were doing in the space. So
Yeah, and I found out it's interesting because I spent a lot of time in decade just going to the shows there, right? And I didn't find out till recently that it was a Chinese laundromat. Back then. Yeah. So
wow.
the Chinatown did extend, from the heart of it. So there's also but yeah, it was a Chinese a laundromat, and they said there could have been opium dens or something like that. So
Oh yeah, no, it's like, I mean, I've heard people talk about all the opium dens, and there are some police reports about some of the opium dens I was finding. So yeah. You could get almost darn near anything you were looking for.
just a couple blocks away.
Yep. All right. So Huchlan Onuki, a Japanese immigrant, introduced electricity to Phoenix. The first street lamp was on what street? C, Washington and Central. So can you tell us a little bit about him?
He was a Japanese immigrant. Yeah. That's and then I don't know how he partnered up with people, and then he created that street lamp. He brought electricity to Phoenix, right? So
yeah, so he actually had the first utility company,
and it wasn't called APS. I think it was called something. It was something.
But it grew into APS.
Yeah.
So and that's what I thought was fascinating, was it actually merged with another company as well, and it just kept growing and growing.
Yeah, and if you go to the APS building in downtown right here, it has the history of the timeline from how they started with the founder, everything like that, to now. So in the main,
I mean, it was really interesting. I didn't realize kind of the history, and that he had gone off to also Seattle and like founded a couple of banks, and so really was this really huge entrepreneur, which I thought was so interesting.
And then he just told me about his daughter and all this.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. So I'm blown away from that. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
So yeah, and then Marty asks, so I know when they're excavating for Chinatown, they found a bunch of artifacts, and I don't think anybody has those currently on display. I'm not even sure where those wound up.
But I'm sorry, say that again. I was reading.
When they were like building the ballpark, they found a lot of things from the old Chinatown, and I don't even know what happened to those. That's a good question. I should find out from the Arizona Historical Society where those ended up.
Yeah, they when they built the stadium, the first version of the stadium, they had a corner from the photos and the history I dug up about it. They had a corner somewhere in the stadium that told people that there was a Chinatown that stood here, and it's not there anymore. And the remnants, yeah, the remnants, I don't even notice. I mean, some of the family members, that was from there, they still have some stuff from there. But Michael Levine, he has things that he's found in his warehouse. Those from the yeah. So
I'm
the
not
season.
shocked at all about Michael finding things. So very cool.
He's a
So
treasure
yeah, no,
hunter.
I'll have to find out what happened to some of that stuff and see if there's anybody who has it and see what's going on. All right. And our last question is one of the only Asian murals in the Roosevelt district symbolizes protecting guardian animal in the Chinese culture, and that is the D, the foo dog. So, and this building actually has Cobra Arcade, as well as did have a Snow Ice Shavery in it.
Yes, Snow Ice Shaving downtown. The second location was there for 3 years. Before we closed it a year and a half ago. But we painted a mural um, down there to represent kind of just the Asian culture a little bit, especially me being half Chinese. But the food dog was kind of like I felt like, well, I didn't realize there was no Asian murals in downtown, and I just kind of built it to just like put it out there. Well, we hired a letter who's an artist to paint the mural. He did an amazing job. But the representation to symbolize the symbolization of what the food dog is about. Because in a lot of like Chinese homes, or even like you go to temples or somewhere in Asia and all that stuff like that, they have two dogs out the front, statues. Even if you go to like East Valley, you see that at like in Mekong Plaza, two dogs or usually some dogs that looks like lion dogs. So that's the food dog, and they just kind of have this kind of like guardian, like what a dog does, right? So to protect, right?
Exactly.
Protect your business, yeah.
All right. So how did people do? I know. So Preston said he only got 60% right.
Well, Preston, I mean, he's half Asian too, so he's more Asian. You got 60% right, so you're more
So
Asian.
he actually better than he should have. So Annie, both companies that fed into Central Arizona Light and Power, those predated that. So I mean, you're really looking like the late 1800s when some of this stuff was happening. So yeah, it was really kind of fun to kind of dig into some of that history and just his history as an entrepreneur. So how did everybody do? I mean, we know Preston only got 60% right, but and Maddie did as well. Okay, so it seems like people were getting probably about around 50% was probably a good number. But it's not on what you get right, but now stories. So when you walk out, you actually know a little bit more than you did when you started this evening. And that's the reason why we do this, is for that reason. All right, so Tony, so tell us what you've got going on now.
I'm working on. Well, I launched a platform, a local open platform, to help communities connect with each other, to keep it local, to inspire one another. And Marshall's on there. So
I am indeed.
It's a platform called Local Buzz. If you go, the website is www.localbuzz.co. You can discover and share local things that are happening in your local life, whether it's outdoors, supporting a local business, hiking, family-friendly stuff, arts. We just teamed up with ArtLink. They just made a post today.
Oh, nice.
Announcing the Art Detour on our platform that.
Very cool.
So they're going to be posting. We're going to be sharing content 33 days straight.
Well, yeah, because now it's just going to be a month long instead of just being like a long weekend. It's going to be so you can actually go and see the art instead of just having to like run from one spot to a next, but actually go and enjoy the art through the entire month. So yeah, so that's going to be exciting.
That'll be in the arts and culture category, but for the most part, these are things that are happening. There's a lot of amazing things happening in local communities that you don't see, that people don't represent. It doesn't get much exposure, but Local Buzz is a positive, uplifting platform that highlights these assets and these parts of the communities that people love to hear. They know it's local and they feel connected, that they, this is in their city, in their state, and it's coming from, our local communities. And if you guys get a chance, please check it out. Download the app. Could definitely use your local support. Supporting local in general. And yeah, but overall, above all, it's if when I succeed, I'm gonna manifest this. When I succeed with this, I'll think about Phoenix Night Market. I'll think about, I'll think
Okay.
about Phoenix Night. That's not like, but for the most part, my purpose in the city is to support each other, especially uplift each other, especially during these times, and having a positive platform like this for you to highlight what you're doing in your local life that's inspiring others on there as well. That's what it's about. It's that synergy, building that synergy.
Right, exactly. And that's the fun of being in a city, is really that synergy
Yeah.
of, oh my gosh, I'm driving by here. It's like, I mean, like I've still got to get to Early Bird. I haven't been there yet. I will get there. I have no doubt.
Yeah,
So,
people say they discovered in the past 2 months since we launched, they discovered so many things are happening in local communities and business that they haven't really, you know, discovered elsewhere. And it's also a video-based platform, so you're seeing it get more genuine, more live, more direct instead of just seeing text. And it's a lot of people on there vlogging about their small business or the creativity, and yeah, it's here to help our community.
yeah, indeed. And so, Tony, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your passion about the local Chinese history that's here.
Yeah, I love your outfit.
I couldn't resist. I was getting ready. I'm like, what am I going to wear? I was like, oh, I don't think I've worn this out of the house yet. So I'm
when I
kind of
get
excited.
when I get my 1940s Spider-Man gangster like outfit and all that, like then we'll go out, have some drinks, and be cool.
Sounds good. All right. Tony, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and have a great rest of your evening and a safe trip home.
Actually, I'm home, so but thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my gosh, wasn't that fun? I love getting to hear stories about Phoenix, about new things that I didn't know. I mean, getting a chance to explore Mr. Onick's family has been fascinating, and to find out what he really did here in the valley. And so if you first started watching and you weren't quite sure what, maybe you weren't sure if you should share, I will now give another shout out to you that, maybe now is a good time to share, so that way all your friends can see the fun that we were having talking about Chinese history right here in Arizona. So now we're going to talk about one of the places near and dear to my heart, Little Arizona. And so a lot of people don't realize. So I talk about how I moved from New York, but I really started off in a little tiny town of about 25 people. We had a highway to one side of us, but the town itself had 2 roads, 1 stop sign. And so I really have an affinity, I think, for some of those small towns. And so last week we talked about a town. And so this week we're going to talk about Hopeville, Arizona, that is actually out near Buckeye. It is in Maricopa County, has a population of about 250 people. Now, it was founded in 1981, so it's a relatively new town. But the reason for that is so last week we talked about Allenville, which was a town created for basically the black cotton pickers to be able to establish a residence or a household instead of living in a tent. But it was built on a floodplain, and so it kept flooding. And so they had several floods, and finally by 1981, residents kind of decided it was time to give that up. And so many of them left, and some of them moved on to Hopeville. Now, again, it was founded in 81. Now, one of the things they did do was they were able to build infrastructure. So unlike Allenville, getting safe, drinkable water was not an issue. And it's still fairly wide open land, even though Goodyear is touted as one of the fastest growing places. You've still got Hopeville right smack dab there, which I think is kind of interesting. I was going to try and get out there, but I didn't get a chance to get out there this week. I've got my list of places to go on a road trip is getting quite extensive. So next week coming up, we have Dr. Neil Lester from ASU. And so that's going to be a fascinating conversation as we get a chance to talk to him about Project Humanity, some of the things he's doing, as well as he collects Black Americana. And so we're going to have a really interesting discussion about that and some of the things that I collect as well. And so that's what we'll be talking about next week. Now, remember, if you have any suggestions, stories, questions that you didn't get to ask, now is your chance to ask those questions. And you can throw me an email. You can reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram, but I would love to hear from you. And don't forget, we do have our second Saturday on April 10th. We have our walking tour coming up in April. So March is already sold out. So because we limited to only 10 people and we're all wearing masks. Now, also coming up in March, along with the City of Phoenix and South Mountain Storytelling Institute, we are going to be doing a project that is getting people to start sharing their LGBTQ stories. So many of those, like so many other communities, there's really no written history. And so we're starting to now document those. And so we're looking for people to share those histories. And, it doesn't matter whether you've been here for 50 years or whether you've been here for just 3 weeks, that's still history. So looking forward to this project and seeing what we can find out. Now, as we get ready to leave you this evening, I will remind you, so same bat time, same bat channel next week. Now, we always end, well, actually, I don't say always because sometimes we change things up a bit, but we have the intro video that we saw was from Cole Travis, a good friend. The video was shot by Chris Allen. And always, I want to give a shout out, and I will definitely give a cheers for Purple Rain, taro milk tea, and a lot of booze. And so we will see here next week. As we leave you, you're going to see some found film footage from here in Arizona from the 50s, as well as music from Mr. Ho, who is a Sunny Slope boy now living on the East Coast. So thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your night, and I will see you all next week, if not on some social media, maybe even local buzz. All right. Thank you all so much, and have a great night.